serpent youth in white, with furious gaze, writes poems, dances, yet fierce in battle's blaze. On a spring day with a mild wind, in the marsh of white mist, an old wolf brews tea over a stove. Watching the white reflection in the water, he mutters, "You and I should not be here." The Whiteclad Noble, amid spear practice, hears these words. Swift as thought, he hurls his spear towards the stove, and in another instant, he flashes over, grips the haft, and stands poised before the aged Yaoguai. "Shall we sip blood, or tea?" "Tea. Sit." They sit face to face. The old wolf hands the noble a bowl of tea. The noble drains it in one gulp. "A fine tea." The old wolf nods. "Does a raised mountain garrison warrant so many schemes?" The noble replies, "I come at my brother's command. There are no schemes." The old wolf retorts, "My return from death. Was it not a scheme?" The noble says nothing. The old wolf gazes at him, also silent. Despite the cloudiness in the wolf's eyes, his unease is apparent. The noble ponders for a moment, then finally answers, "That truly wasn't a scheme. If not a scheme, then what was it? Have you heard about that child in the court? The Buddhas have a spell. They piece together items that mimic the body, chant the mantra of revival, and thus bring back a life." The old wolf smiles bitterly and shakes his head. "That master, most assuredly, wields no such power. Indeed, he does not. Yet the foul relic he obtained bears this potency." The old wolf says anxiously, "But living like this, I can barely sleep or eat in peace. When doom is nigh, life may yet persist. When blessed with life, the loom of death lingers. Breathe and make peace with it, and you may find your tranquility." The old wolf says nothing. The noble lowers his eyes, also silent. For all the uncanniness of his eyes, his compassion is apparent. The old wolf says, "I'll leave this tea to you. Better to drink tea." The old wolf rises with a sweep of his sleeve, sighing deeply. "Living like this on their blood. How could I bear to do that?" He totters away, not by the path he came, but turning down a fork in the road beside the marsh. "Tell the master he doesn't need to come see me anymore." A kind face veils his virtuous light. The benevolent eyes mask his might. To the one he grants a wondrous spell, for that the story has yet to tell. As stated in the celestial laws, a keeper has the duty to observe the living beings in his domain and nurture the soil and streams. That day, as the keeper of the Black Wind Mountain made his customary rounds on the hills, tending to mortal concerns, he saw an aged Taoist drawing near from a distance. A vestment embellished with stars, a herb-gathering basket plaited from verdant creepers, a fishing drum tapped in his hand, and a song about the lofty moon. In just a few steps, he glided his way to the keeper. The keeper looked closely and was sure they had never met. But judging from the Taoist's white hair, vibrating face, and bright eyes full of authority, the keeper knew he was no ordinary mortal. Hastily, he greeted the Taoist. "Taoist master, this humble keeper pays his respects." The old Taoist nodded slightly and passed his basket to the keeper. The keeper took a look and saw that the basket was filled with rare and mystical items, as well as miraculous herbs. He couldn't help but be startled and asked, "How can a humble keeper accept such a generous gift?" The Taoist smiled and said, "I was just passing through this place, but I knew that soon there would be a great upheaval in this mountain. I thought the items in this basket would help you weather the storm for a while, so I came to visit." "What made you say this, sir?" "I have an old acquaintance with a bad temper. Although he has amassed a measure of merit, I worry that with his arrogant nature, he shall find it impossible to stay out of trouble. I fear he will bring great disaster upon himself again." The keeper thought carefully and said sincerely, "What can a humble keeper be of help?" Seeing that the keeper was quite astute, the old Taoist gestured for him to draw near. He leaned in and murmured something into the keeper's ear, then instructed, "If you chance upon him in the mountain, pass on these 2 spells. I cannot reveal myself, hence I rely on you to teach him, as a means of honoring our bond." The keeper was immensely grateful and bowed deeply in appreciation. The old Taoist returned the bow and was about to leave on a cloud. The keeper hurriedly asked, "May I inquire, Taoist master, from whence do you hail?" By the time the keeper spoke, the Daoist had already vanished into the distance. A leaf floated down from the sky, its scent faint yet distinct, its tip extremely slender and long. A Bodhi leaf. At that moment, a revelation dawned upon the keeper. He bowed and paid his respects to the departing silhouette until the clouds and mist obscured his sight, then turned to depart. When fortune fades, speak not of past delight. In times of joy, recall the memory's blight. A single thought of greed can cloud the mind. Each step in anger binds, leaving wisdom blind. According to common sense, the local keeper and the mountain deities should work together harmoniously. However, this was not the case in Yellow Wind Ridge. Years ago, when the Yellow Wind Sage led his followers to subdue Buddha-headed Stone Guai, he sought the keeper's assistance in battle. The keeper, however, chose to remain a bystander. Consequently, when the Guai's essence was divided and distributed, only the mountain deities received a share, leaving the keeper empty-handed and filled him with resentment. Knowing his own abilities were mediocre and lacking any significant divine powers or backing, the keeper believed that obtaining the essence would grant him great powers, akin to those of the mountain deities. Thus, when the Father of Stones departed and the Yellow Wind Sage surrendered, he harbored malicious intentions towards the Mother of Stones. He observed the valley for many days, noting how the stone guais were busy moving mountains and shaping stones, while the Mother of Stones merely issued commands from her stone cave. This gave him an idea. One day, he transformed himself to resemble a stone guai and pretended to be on an errand to approach the Mother of Stones. His plan was to ram into her abdomen with all his might hoping to crack her open and extract the essence. However, just as he leaped, the Mother of Stones let out a piercing scream, and several stone guais emerged from the ground nearby. Distracted, the keeper missed his mark and only managed to create a crack on the Mother of Stone's chest. Realizing his plan had been exposed, he clung to her, attempting to absorb her power with all his might. By the time the stone guais pried him off, he had absorbed half of her essence. Enraged, the stone guais chased and attacked him relentlessly. The keeper, unable to escape, tried to revert to his original form to fight back. To his dismay, he found himself unable to change back, likely because the stone essence had transformed him into a stone. The stone guais continued to batter him until he was buried in the ground. From then on, the keeper lost all hope and resigned himself to being a broken stone in the valley. Yet, he still believed that if he could obtain the other half of the essence, he might be able to transform back. In silken robes that flutter bright, a long snout guai with eyes alight. Drunk with joy, he sleeps on tombs forlorn. His spear and armor gleam like dawn. Windy, searing sun, a vast waste. A headless monk and a yellow-robed squire rested together under a withered tree. The monk plucked at the strings of his sansyan, his body swaying gently to and fro. "Enough," said the squire, rousing himself. "Let's have some peace." The monk's hand stilled. He edged away, then raised his hand to strum again. The squire hastily held out his drinking flask. "Have a drink." "With what mouth? I ain't got a head." "Where is it? Didn't ye hear the song?" The monk answered himself. "Gone. Someone stole it. You should have kept better watch on your head. The fault is your own." The monk turned away, making no answer. The squire drew a piece of gold from his robe and showed it to the monk. Though he had neither head nor eyes, the monk warned, "Mind how ye swing about such a prize. Could have the thieves eyeing ye." The squire waved a hand. "I don't have to worry. I'll come for you if it's filched." "Me? You're the only one I've shown it to. If it's gone, you will be the culprit." The monk gave a dry chuckle. At a loss for words, the squire gestured toward the horizon. "There's gold aplenty there. Why should you covet a mere sheet from me? I ain't after your gold. But tell me, what gold lies there? You truly don't know? That was once a kingdom abundant with gold. Gold from the gilded Buddha statues, all stripped bare. Even the gold on Buddha statues. Ye ain't a believer in karma then? Ha! All those golden Buddhas never brought them any favor. It is plain there is no such thing as karma. The monk fell silent. The squire sneered. Tipping his flask, he found it empty and then rose to his feet. I'm to await someone at the bidding of my brother. If you want more drink, come find me. He tucked the flask on the side. I'll go scrape off more gold and trade it for a better brew. Then we can drink our fill. The monk tried to stop him, so he played the sanxian, singing a song of karmic justice. The squire paid him no mind. With a wave and a laugh, he strode away across the sands. The headless monk's heart weighed down with disquiet. The yellow-robed squire, however, went on his way, and the desert air rang long with the peals of his laughter. Thunshan, grief and rage untold, defeated and demeaned by my follower bold. Confused, I saw kindness repaid with hate. The sands obscure the truth, the wind seals my fate. In the days when strange winds first howled through windrest, a curious event unfolded. Children of the village were at play near the village's edge, when haunting chords from the Thunshan wafted through the air. Their young ears caught the song's pleasant notes. In a land o' bloodshed and chaos's sting, intrigued and never having heard such a song, the youngsters raced toward the musician. As they neared, they beheld a figure leaning on a boulder headless. The children scattered in fright, all but young Chengda, who stumbled and fell. As he lay, weeping and watching his friends flee, the headless monk ceased his strumming. He emerged from behind the rock and strummed once more. Invisible forces gently lifted Chengda, steadying him on his feet. No longer fearful, the boy observed that, apart from the missing head, this figure resembled the benevolent monks he'd seen in the hamlet. Seeing Chengda unafraid, the headless monk plucked another cord. A cooling breeze passed over the boy's bruised leg. Looking down, Chengda found his wound miraculously healed. Clapping in joy, he exclaimed, "Magic! Magic!" The monk strummed again, and Chengda's torn trousers restored themselves. With that, the monk returned to his eerie song. Yellow Wind Ridge, a mighty old range, once buzzing with joy and glee, and vanished into a gust of wind and sand. When the villagers returned to save Chengda, they found him pointing at the sand, exclaiming, "It was an immortal!" The adult scoffed, "Nonsense, what sort of immortal lacks a head? You've seen a ghost, boy." From emptiness, desires arise, bringing strife. From compassion, lust grows, vast as life. Past joys turn to future regrets. Cleanse the heart, let go, as the wind sets. The reasons behind Bodhisattva Lingji's beheading were widely debated. Tiger Vanguard put it this way: how could we, mere followers, dare to discuss the master's affairs? However, I once heard my father mention that our master despised that bodhisattva of some sort. Their so-called master-disciple bond. To me, it was more about merely seeking protection. Being a Yaoguai, you got to be pragmatic. Immortals and Buddhas don't show mercy. It's all about mutual benefit. The king of flowing sands seemed to know more details. Years ago, when Master helped my humble kingdom avert disasters, I caught a glimpse of that big beetle. It had a Buddha head on its back, identical to the one Master beheaded. Alas, everyone in my kingdom turned into rats later. Master said it was a calamity he brought upon us and left with his followers. I know he didn't want to leave. He always wanted Yaoguais to live dignified lives. The second prince was terse. Master? Not bad. The Bodhisattva? Deserved it. Ma Tianba, passing through, sighed and said, "An oil-stealing rat climbs high only if someone sets up a ladder." The yellow wind sage had only one comment about the matter. Those who bring disaster upon others will have disaster brought upon themselves. If not by me, then by someone else. Completing Xuanwu's name, the turtle and the snake, cycles end and cycles start, the Yaoguais they break. In frozen realms of ice and snow, they honor nature's call. United hearts in decay, better to die than living in pain. The New West, above the bitter lake, the turtle and snake generals revealed their true forms. The turtle general, as massive as Mount Tai, landed in the lake, causing huge waves. The snake general, resembling the mythical Zhu Long, coiled around a mountain ridge, shaking the earth. Yellowbrow showed no fear, wielding a spike-shaft cudgel, strong and flexible, engaging the two generals in fierce combat. The turtle sprayed water, and the snake breathed fire, almost gaining the upper hand. Suddenly, Yellowbrow threw an object into the bitter lake, which transformed into a 10-tailed golden fish. The fish grew rapidly upon contact with water, entangling the turtle general. The snake general intended to assist, but Yellowbrow untied a sack from his waist, releasing a strange beast. This creature had a gilded body and a Buddha's head, with sharp claws on its feet. On the shore, it engaged in a fierce and evenly matched battle with the snake general. As the four clashed and shouted, Yellowbrow stood on the cliff, chanting. Suddenly, a freezing wind howled, and a heavy snowstorm descended, blanketing thousands of miles and freezing the lake's surface. Despite their immortality, the turtle and snake were bound by their natural instincts to hibernate in the cold. Gradually, they grew weary and exhausted, their eyelids heavy with fatigue. After countless rounds, the turtle general, unable to endure any longer, sank into the icy depths of the water as he closed his eyes. The last scene he saw was the snake general, unable to escape the frost and icy blades, being cut into several chunks on the shore. A fox beside the mountain stands, in sorrow deep and long, with caring heart and hopeful wish for her savior to belong. With steadfast heart, it seeks the path to rise and journey far, yet fate unknown, her end draws near before it sees the star. According to ancient texts, a fox that lives for 100 years can transform into a human and gain knowledge of happening 1,000 miles away. After 1,000 years, it can communicate with the ones above and become a fox immortal. There was once a young fox who harbored a deep aspiration to become a fox immortal from a very young age. Driven by this dream, it practiced diligently and tirelessly, never allowing itself to rest. In its quest for knowledge, the young fox frequently sought advice from its kin, asking, "How can I become a fox immortal?" Some experienced fox squires responded with cautionary wisdom, saying, "Becoming a fox immortal is no easy feat each year. The Lady of Mount Tai holds a rigorous examination. Only those who demonstrate exceptional skill in both arts and philosophy can ascend to immortality. Those who fail the examination are destined to remain as ordinary wild foxes, forever barred from achieving immortality." The young fox asked, "But how can I excel in arts and philosophy? I don't even have anything to write with." The fox squire replied, "Once you can transform, you can take the form of a beautiful woman or a handsome man and go to human towns to study and learn. But remember this: the Lady of Mount Tai oversees all foxes and despises those who seduce and consume humans. You must know that absorbing human essence is the quickest way for Yaoguais to become powerful. If you wish to become a fox immortal, this path is forbidden, and you must set off on much more perilous and arduous path." The young fox said, "I understand now, but I am not afraid of the perils and ordeals. I will discipline myself and follow the path to true immortality." From then on, the young fox relied solely on the essence of the sun and moon for cultivation. Decades passed in the mountains. As she gradually acquired the ability to transform, she often approached human villages to observe their way of life. One day, it accidentally stepped into a hunter's trap and was rescued by a young scholar who took it home. In tattered robes and a bamboo hat worn, golden chakram through fire, a sight to adorn. 3 times in snow, his Zen heart tried, neither foe nor friend, just mischief implied. Gray and white, ice and snow blanketed the entire mountain range. In a deep valley, there was a peculiar cave with a lush green watermelon field, thriving exceptionally well. A young monk was in the field, picking melons, patting them here and there, but none seemed to satisfy him. Next to the watermelon field stood a strange man wearing a bamboo hat, watching the young monk pick watermelons. "My brother said that if there's a chance, I can test the monkey on his behalf," he said. The young monk finally picked up a watermelon, weighed it in his hands and smiled. "This one is good, ripe and sweet. The one you mentioned, I've already checked him for you, he's good." The strange man replied, "If I don't test him myself, I won't be at ease to tell my brother about him." The young monk exerted his strength and split the watermelon in half. "Instead of feeling unease about him, I worry more about your brother." The strange man pondered for a moment and said, "The thing is guarded by my brother. There is nothing to worry about." The young monk, munching on both halves of the watermelon, said noncommittally, "That thing tests the bearer's heart greatly. He has borne it alone for many years. Let's hope he doesn't fail at the last moment." The strange man quickly responded, "That's why, if this time that monkey succeeds, wouldn't it be the best of both of you?" The young monk stopped, looked up at the strange man, who quickly bowed his head and apologized. The young monk laughed again, waved his hand and said, "Go, go. First, pass my disciple's test, then we'll talk about the rest." In the kingdom of flowing sands, his lineage held the throne, Chubai spear in hand, a prince of might well known. The third prince, renowned in the city of Pin, originally hailed from a distant land before becoming a disciple of Bodhisattva Lingji. Bodhisattva Lingji was famed for his ability to subdue Yaoguais. This was precisely the skill that the third prince sought to learn, as his homeland was plagued by rampant Yaoguais. After the journeyers had bested the Yellow Wind Sage, the third prince was relieved to learn that the sage had been sent back to Mount Lingshan. This news allowed him to focus on his mountain practice undisturbed. Later, whispers of another grand ceremony in the New West caught his attention. With his master's permission, he set out with his 4 captains to investigate, suspecting Yellowbrow of foul play. However, they were met with a crushing defeat, as Yellowbrow had once again stolen his master's vessel. "Master, we have suffered a resounding defeat. This is not the first encounter we've had with him, and yet, here we stand, vanquished once more. Master, a beguiling spell had taken me. I had to wound myself to stay awake. Master, be warned. That old Guai now possesses an immense gilded form, which turns aside blades and spears with ease. Exercise utmost caution. Master, the 4 captains must have been bewildered by some evil spells. Now, they have bowed before Yellowbrow and become his devotees. Master, my first captain debated with Yellowbrow and was deluded. Now he sings beguiling chants in the dungeon to incite our surrender. Master, Yellowbrow twisted off my second captain's head. Into pus and blood it turned. Yellowbrow's evil craft then transformed the blood and pus into a lotus flower blooming at the temple gate. Master, the third captain threw his weapon at Yellowbrow, and Yellowbrow broke the captain's limbs and reattached them with those of others. Master, the fourth captain was struck by Yellowbrow's spikeshaft cudgel. His body was pierced, and eyes grew out of every hole. Master, it was my command that led the 4 captains to attack Yellowbrow. I was wrong. It's all my fault, all my fault. The third prince, driven mad, having blinded himself and deafened his ears, muttered incessantly in the dungeon. Could his master truly hear his words spoken to the walls? Did he even have a master? Why had his master never come to save him? Divining fate, he plays his part in worldly guise a cunning art. He laughs at fools who seek their fate. For luck and doom, the heart dictates. The celestial court often favored guise of plants and trees in the selection of keepers. The keeper of the New West, however, was renowned for its being a feathered deity of wind. This keeper, unlike others, cared not for tending the soil or sowing seeds. Instead, he had a unique penchant for divination. Though he hailed from the West, chanting sutras was not his calling. His true talent lay in the ancient art of yarrow stalk divination, where he skillfully foretold fortunes and misfortunes. The New West was flanked by the Thorn Ridge to the east and the Seven Perils Mountain to the west, both treacherous places scarcely visited by travelers. Guarding this area, the keeper compelled every passerby to have their fortune told. Under the guise of interpreting the divination, he would set up intricate traps. Travelers, eager to avoid misfortune, would unknowingly fall into the keeper's schemes. One day, a traveler passed through, and the keeper, as usual, insisted on reading his fortune. The reading revealed a bad omen. Terrified, the traveler begged the keeper for a solution. The keeper, feigning mystery, claimed to have a secret method to turn misfortune into fortune, but it required a hefty payment. Desperate and believing him, the traveler handed over all his money. The keeper then directed him to a narrow, winding path, instructing him to proceed quickly. Following the keeper's advice, the traveler safely crossed the ridge and the mountain. Observing this, the keeper laughed and said, "The art of divination lies not in the omens but in the heart. Where the heart leads, there lies fortune or misfortune." The tale spread, leaving everyone amazed. From then on, those who passed through felt fortunate to have their fortunes told by the keeper. Born with a clumsy heart, trapped in life's advance and retreat, breaking precepts repeatedly, following nature, not the Buddha's feet with rake and tusk, smashing fate, burrowing karma's weight, rolling in the muddy world, heedless of scorn or debate. In the highest sky above the jade pool, amidst the swirling clouds and mist, celestial maidens flitted to and fro. Today, the Queen Mother of the West was hosting a lotus viewing banquet. As Admiral Tenpeng walked past the gate, he saw a tall, burly man blocked by a celestial maiden. "Admiral Curtain Raiser," the maiden said in a polite but cold manner. "Without a handwritten invitation from the Queen Mother, you cannot sit by the pool. If you don't mind, why not take a seat in the side hall and have some tea?" The burly man responded in obedience, but his gaze fixed in the main hall. At such behavior, Tenpeng subtly shook his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. He presented his invitation to the other maiden at the gate and strode in, his head held high. The banquet was in full swing, with celestial officials exchanging toasts, their joyful laughter resonating throughout the hall, creating an atmosphere of mirth and merriment. Tenpeng, an admiral who guarded the celestial river, seldom attended such festive gatherings. However, he managed to greet everyone as if he was well acquainted with them all while mindful not to overindulge in wine. The god of longevity stood beside the Queen Mother, stroking his beard and chuckled, "Such extravagance. I wonder how would the peach banquet surpass it?" A constellation officer, standing nearby, chuckled at the elder's concern. "Elder, such worries are in vain. With the allure of those 9,000-year peaches, even a casual arrangement of tables outside the celestial gate would draw the dignitaries from across the three realms, be they noble or humble, eager to partake in a taste." A red-faced immortal sneered. "It's not the peaches they seek, but rather to bow before the Jade Emperor and the Three Supremes, and worship the Buddhas of the West. Such assemblies are scarce pretexts for them to curry favor and bask in the company of the divine." The Queen Mother spoke with solemn dignity. "The peach banquet is no trivial matter. Our gathering today is but a prelude, a rehearsal of the rites and rituals that must be executed with exactness and reverence." Upon concluding her speech, the Queen Mother signaled to the Lord of Luna with a glance. With a few claps of his hands, a group of maidens dressed in white entered the hall. The maidens took their positions by the jade pool and began to play instruments, sing, and dance. Among them, one dancer, with hair like silver and a dress like clouds, stood out with her exceptional grace. Tenpeng had never seen the beautiful celestial maidens so closely, and he was fascinated. A celestial maiden in a violet gauze dress, holding an exquisite cup of wine with both of her hands. "Admiral," she softly called. Drenched in his fascination, Tenpeng took the cup from her hands, yet his gaze never left the white dancing sleeves. After the dance concluded, Tenpeng regained senses. He rose up to toast the Queen Mother, yet the queue was long. By the time he reached the end of it, he found himself already outside the gate. Suddenly, he heard someone shouting, "Shoes! His shoes!" He looked over and saw two celestial officers supporting a drunken monkey as they hurried past. Tenpeng thought to himself, "When will I ever get to be as drunk as that monkey?" Schemes and plots, hard to outsmart, impulsive nature, a straightforward heart. He should thank his twin blades. One cuts through folly, one has the truth displayed. Gentle mountain breeze, wildflowers-covered ground. Inside the stone cave behind the temple, the purple-faced Daoist master asked with a gentle smile, "How long have you been in this temple?" I do not know. I can only remember that the thunder has struck the hall over 100 times, replied the Venom Daoist, standing cautiously beside the master. Then it has been over 100 years, the master said, walking towards the bare stone wall, about to touch it. Master, the Daoist called out, I have been here for a long time, yet you have not taught me any skills. Could you perhaps teach me a few moves today? You wish to learn my skills? Since the day I called you master, yes. Your foundation is solid, and energy channels harmonized. You have already achieved high. I am afraid learning my skills won't help you much. The Daoist tensed up at the master's words, fully on guard. Yet, out of his expectation, the master uttered, skills I can offer no more, but some unique methods of practices I can offer. Yet they are beyond the mind's feeble and demand strong willpower to succeed. If you are not deterred by hardship, I can let you try. Intrigued, the Daoist asked, what kind of unique methods? The Daoist shook his head and said, without your willingness to learn, I cannot tell you that. The Daoist pondered deeply, unable to make a decision. The Daoist gently persuaded, it is a path trodden by many of my disciples. If you come here, attempt nothing, and achieve nothing, would it not be a journey in vain? Hearing this, the Daoist remembered his brother's instructions and inquired, what can this method achieve? It will refine your body, elevate your divine skills, and the path to ascension shall be an ease. Is it truly so profound? If you find it not helping, you can stop at any time, the master said confidently. Moved by these words, the Daoist agreed immediately. I am ready to follow your instructions, master. Come with me, the Daoist said, glancing once more at the stone wall before leading the Daoist away. In crimson-embroidered crown, pure and refined, ascending to meet the immortal, unconfined, revered in the vast skies, far and wide, what foolish man would dare not abide? The newly appointed Dawnstar originally served in the Hall of Incense. Now promoted, he had his first opportunity to tour the Celestial Palace. As he exited the Celestial Palace, he was met by the Crane Immortal, who first took him to the Celestial Gate to be introduced to the captains of the court on duty and the 4 heavenly kings. They then visited the 33 halls and the 72 palaces, paying respects to everyone along the way. The celestial beings treated them with utmost courtesy, which greatly pleased the newly appointed constellation officer. After the tour, the Crane Immortal was about to personally escort the Dawnstar back to the Palace of Illumination. On the way back, the Dawnstar suddenly asked, I wonder if my predecessor was promoted or demoted. Could you enlighten me, so I may know how to conduct myself in the future? The Crane Immortal smiled and said, he mingled too closely with the mortal realm, perhaps making some friends among the mountains and wilds. Now, having shed his celestial bonds, who can say where he revels in his newfound freedom? The constellation officer frowned and asked, I heard that the Dome of Stars conducts roll calls daily. How could it be that the constellation officer left without anyone knowing? The Crane Immortal gently smoothed the wrinkles on the Dawnstar's robe and said somberly, if he hadn't left quietly, how would you be here now? Hearing this, the Dawnstar seemed to understand and did not pursue the matter further. Tearful eyes reflect tearful eyes. Broken hearts echo broken cries. The world harbors the cold and sly, yet spares the soul in serpent's guise. The Jade Emperor sat on his throne in the Celestial Palace, gathering the officials. Hongyi stood among the immortals and saw Taibai Jinxing leading an officer in. A crown of 5 peaks on his head, a landscape-engraved tablet in his hand. He wore the light of the 7 stars on his robe, and walked to the pleasant music of 8 jade rings dangling from his waist. Taibai Jinxing then announced, Your Majesty, I have brought the son of Bodhisattva Pilanpo from the Purple Cloud Mountain as commanded. The Jade Emperor responded, Let the celestial official come forward. I appoint you as the Dawnstar, ranking among the 28 constellations, and grant you residence in the Palace of Illumination. Remember to be diligent in your duties and conduct your patrols on time. The newly appointed Dawnstar thanked the Emperor for his grace. The Jade Emperor then ordered the Crane Immortal and the Supreme Celestial Inspector to escort him to his post, also bestowing upon him 2 bottles of imperial wine and 10 golden flowers. The Immortals congratulated the Dawn Star, while Hongyi stood quietly on the periphery, observing for a moment. She was slightly older than him, and having grown up together due to the deep connections and frequent interactions between their families, she had always seen him as a younger brother. Now, witnessing his moment of glory, she believed his future held limitless potential. After waiting a while longer, she watched him greet and bid farewell to others in front of the hall. His spirits high, yet he never glanced her way. With a quiet sigh, she turned and slowly walked out of the hall. The furnace crumbles, bricks fall, a day of disgrace. Lament did he, the beauty he could not embrace. All his talents wasted on the golden sun. Looking back, he's become a foolish one. The galaxy was clear, and the sky was spotless. That night, a young Taoist boy sat by the furnace, fanning the fire. Feeling drowsy, he was about to sneak in a nap when he suddenly heard a soft laugh. Looking up, he saw his master standing at the door with a girl, watching him doze off. He quickly straightened his clothes and stood up to apologize. Contrary to his usual stern demeanor, the master did not scold him. Instead, he called the boy over and briefly introduced the newcomer, instructing them to guard the furnace together from now on. Finally, he said lightly, "She is your senior. You may call her Rakshasi." At first, the young Taoist boy was delighted to have a companion, but upon hearing that the newcomer was a senior, he felt displeased. As soon as the master left, he decided to make things difficult for her. Handing her the fan, he said, "The furnace is now your responsibility. It's only right that the older one does the work, isn't it, my senior?" The girl did not argue and simply smiled. "Indeed, my junior, you may go rest." The next day, when the master ascended the altar, the girl approached. The young Taoist boy thought she was going to complain, but instead she said, "Master, as a new disciple, it is only right that I fan the fire. However, the fan my junior gave me is a bit small and not very handy." The master glanced at the young Taoist boy and smiled. "If that's the case, I'll make a new one for you. You may as well wield it as a nice vessel." The young Taoist boy had not expected his usually strict master to be so kind to the girl. Gradually, he began to see her in a new light. From then on, they practiced together. He discovered that the girl was adept in both Buddhist and Taoist teachings. No matter what scripture the master taught, she could always engage in discussion, whereas he often struggled to keep up, both in speech and thought. Later, when the furnace was kicked over, he was severely punished by the master. While other disciples looked on coldly, it was only the senior who volunteered to descend to the mortal realm to help him. In the mortal realm, he learned that his senior had her own cave dwelling and a group of loyal followers. The master had even granted her the title of Earthy Immortal as compensation. Sometime later, the master arranged for her to marry a Yaoguai king in the mortal realm. Though he felt a bit melancholic, he understood that he was ultimately unworthy of her, no matter how many dirty tasks he had done for the master. In the master's eyes, he would never be a match for her. In life, a brave heart met a noble lord, loyal and true, bound by a warrior's accord. Grateful and steadfast, he sought to repay, unyielding in courage, keeping danger at bay. Ma Tianba was originally named Mar. Flaming mountains were scorching hot all year round, with not a blade of grass growing around. Anyone attempting to cross the mountains, even if they had a head of iron and a body of steel, would melt into a puddle. Despite this, some merchants, driven by the lure of profit, attempted to cross the mountains to trade horses in the west. Yet, upon setting foot in the flaming mountains, they were beset by guais. None survived, except for one horse, which bolted and ran for 60 miles after sensing the danger. Exhausted and thirsty, it collapsed at the gate of a manor. An old man named Su, who lived alone in the manor, took pity on the horse. He took it in, fed it, and cared for it. Gradually, the horse regained its strength and grew robust. The horse was intelligent and always responded to the old man's kindness with grateful neighs. The old man, seemingly able to understand the horse, said, "I was the eldest in my family. If you wish to join me, You shall be called Mar, as my second brother." The old man treated Mar with genuine affection, often going hungry himself to ensure Mar was well fed. Mar took note of this and remembered it in his heart. The flaming mountains were in perpetual drought, and without the plantain fan, there was no spring to sow and no autumn to harvest. Moreover, Su was getting on in years. One day, as he was feeding Mar as usual, he suddenly collapsed by the stable. Seeing this, Mar hoisted the old man onto his back and galloped towards the plantain cave on the Emerald Mountain. He ran non-stop for over 770 miles. Yet, by the time they reached the Emerald Mountain, the old man had already passed away. Heartbroken, Mar refused to return to the manor and began wandering the mountains. Seeing Ma Er's gentle nature, the Yaoguais in the mountains often bullied him. Mar endured their taunts and jests, never getting angry or speaking back, homeless and unbannered. He lived this way for many days, his once robust body growing thin again. One day, as he was scavenging along the mountain path for scraps discarded by the lesser Yaoguais, he saw an old bull sleeping by the roadside, with fire burning on his fur. Alarmed, Mar tried to wake the bull, but to no avail. With no other choice, Mar hoisted the old bull onto his back and ran towards the plantain cave. Along the way, somehow, the Yaoguais, seeing Mar carrying a burning bull, were furious. They shouted and attacked, but Mar, ignoring them, charged ahead, sustaining many injuries. It was only when they finally reached the plantain cave that Mar realized the burning bull was the Bull King, who had got drunk somewhere with friends and was now in a deep sleep. With a few calls from Rakshasi, the Bull King was startled awake from his drunken stupor. Seeing the battered Mar, the Bull King laughed heartily. "You are one tough horse. From now on, join my banner, and you shall be named Ma Tianba." Thus Mar became Ma Tianba. He trained and practiced martial arts under the Bull King, growing stronger and eventually becoming a great general under the Bull King's command. With axe in hand, the guard shows might, fearing neither toil nor plight, wishing for the mountain's peace, braving dangers till the sun's last light. A bright afternoon camp of seasons. "Splendid! That's the morale I want to see," the Bull King exclaimed, seated in the main camp atop the cliff, observing the Bull Guais training below. Standing beside him, the pale-axe Stalwart reported, "My king, only such a powerful army is worthy of your majestic presence." The Bull King nodded approvingly, saying, "You've done well, young captain." Looking at the pale-axe Stalwart, he said kindly, "You've not been under my command for long, yet you've managed to train this mixed troop so well. It's beyond my expectations." The pale-axe Stalwart replied humbly, "When I first arrived and saw how well-regulated the king's domain was, I was equally surprised." Realizing he might have misspoken, he quickly apologized. "I meant to say..." The Bull King laughed heartily. "No worries. The well-regulated domain is all thanks to the lady of the house. Her strict rules keep these boneheads in line." The pale-axe Stalwart also laughed. "Indeed, I was initially taken aback by her strict rules." Seeing his straightforwardness, the Bull King praised, "You've done well in managing the troops. I'll promote you to be my vanguard." The pale-axe Stalwart quickly knelt. "Thank you, my king, for the promotion. I will serve you with utmost loyalty." Just then, a voice called out, "Father, why have you summoned me?" The pale-axe Stalwart looked up to see a red-skinned youth approaching from behind. "I called you to observe how to muster and command troops. This is my newly appointed vanguard. Come and meet him." The youth patted the pale-axe Stalwart on the shoulder and smiled. "Very good. If my father trusts you, you must be capable. When I become king, you shall be my general." The Bull King clapped his hands and laughed. "Such ambition! The future of this domain will depend on you." The youth pondered for a moment and said, "Father, why not entrust that item to me as well?" The Bull King's face darkened, and he did not respond. "Father, you trust me with the domain," the youth continued. "So why not with a mere object? Ever since you obtained it, you've grown more haggard. Mother is very worried." The Bull King waved his hand dismissively. "Do not mention this again." The youth, though puzzled, did not wish to defy his father and left reluctantly. Born to a fate of trials and woes, who pities the ebb and flow of those. Better to live in nature's embrace, freely to wander, freely to repose. After delivering her homework to her mother, Pingping went to the height of Ember. Her brother had asked her to meet him there, saying he had something important to discuss. When she arrived, she saw Red Boy standing with his hands on his hips, directing quick as fire and fast as wind to burn the bulguis to flee as his way of training them. Amused at the scene, he laughed loudly and boisterously. "Brother," Pingping called softly. Ever since Red Boy returned from Guanin's tutelage, she felt he had changed. Every time she spoke to him, a subtle fear tugged at her heart. Upon seeing her arrival, Red Boy waved to halt the training and turned to her. "Pingping, let's engage in a game," he proposed. "You will run, and I shall chase you. Let us see if I can catch you before an incense stick burns out." In the past, Pingping would transform into a little fox, leaping through rocks and crevices, always having the upper hand. Yet this time, Red Boy shattered her hiding rocks with a single spear thrust, scorched her standing deadwood with a breath of fire, and flew over the cliffs she jumped across as a red cloud. In less than half the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Red Boy effortlessly caught her inside. Mother's teachings are still too gentle. Seeing his sister's gloomy face, Red Boy took her to rest by the cliff in the Furnace Valley. To cheer her up, he twirled his fire point for her entertainment. Seeing his little sister clapping and cheering, Red Boy asked, "How do you think my skills compare to Father's?" Pingping couldn't answer. She had never dared to make such a comparison. She took out the fire dates her mother had rewarded her and shared them with Red Boy, changing the subject to talk about anecdotes in the mountains. Seeing this, Red Boy didn't press further and responded perfunctorily. Pingping cautiously said, "Brother, you and I have always been the closest. If you have something on your mind, you can tell me. It's not easy for our family to be reunited. I just want to live peacefully in these mountains, away from worldly strife." Gazing at the burning clouds, Red Boy said, "Sister, you should see more of the outside world. There's no such thing as living away from worldly strife. It's just self-deception of losers." Pingping wanted to ask him who he was competing with and why he had to compete. But before she could speak, she felt a blow to the back of her neck and fainted. From dawn to dusk, toil's bitter strain, day and night, home's burdens remain. Destiny shows no mercy, merciful she became. Why is her household light the hardest to sustain? Mount Lingshan, Vulture Peak, before the Thunderclap Temple. Rakshasi clasped her intertwined hands tightly, steadying her trembling body, striving to appear calm and serene. She had traveled to many places on this journey. Domains of the Yaoguai kings she befriended in the mortal realm, abodes of the gods she met in the celestial realm, the immortal islands on the sea, and even the underworld. She had visited them all. She also went to the Tushita Palace to seek advice from her master. Yet the latter had only offered a heartfelt persuasion. "I ordered you to raise a child, but I did not ask you to be a true mother. Let the boy stir his trouble. As long as you and your husband stay out of it, you will be safe." Her master's words left her in despair. She knew that no protection would the flaming mountains receive. This was their destiny ordained. But she knew her son all too well, reckless and wild, vengeful and unforgiving. After all the suffering he had endured over the years, unless he could vent his anger, the only way to resolve the siege of flaming mountains would be to break his spine. Thus she came here for revenge. How to exact it, she had no idea, her mind a blank void. "Lady Rakshasi, the master summons you inside." Ananda stood at the temple door, his voice as gentle as ever. She straightened her back, gripping the plantain fan tightly in her hand, and hoarsely replied, "Thank you, Venerable," as she walked into the hall, flanked by the 8 great Vajras and 500 Arhats. She seemed to hear faint laughter, but all she saw in her peripheral vision were solemn and dignified figures. Reaching the base of the lotus throne, she knelt with her head held high, clutching the fan tightly. "Rakshasi, what brings you here to seek an audience with me?" She remained silent, gripping the fan with all her might, ready to unleash its divine wind at any moment. The hall was deathly quiet. All eyes were on her. She could feel the Vajras glaring with their angry eyes, the Arhats staring with their wrathful gazes, and all the divine figures transforming into fierce visages. "I," she lowered her head. "I greet you on behalf of my master." A booming laughter echoed, deafening. Within that laughter, she heard the cries of an infant, the innocent giggles of a child, the roars of an adolescent, and the cycle of blooming and withering flowers, the growth of grass and the flight of orioles over millennia. She heard the embers extinguishing in the flaming mountains. Renowned as the mighty king, his life was far from plain. His spirit spanned the 3 realms, his fame touched 4 domains. Among the Guais, a hero grand, wild and untamed, the sudden arrival of Dharma left his homeland forever changed. With Shadow as his companion, true enlightenment within him lay. In days of yore, the Bull King converted to Buddhism and, within a century, completed his practice and returned to the flaming mountains. Overjoyed, Rakshasi and Pingping loudly celebrated his return and hosted a grand banquet in his honor. During the banquet, the keeper of the flaming mountains asked, "My king, why did you return so hastily?" The Bull King replied, "An old friend, with whom I had some misunderstandings in the past, helped me achieve a great merit. The Bodhisattva then pleaded with the Buddha on my behalf, granting me the grace to return. From now on, I will stay in the mountain and go nowhere else." From that day on, the Bull King's temperament changed drastically. His former wild and unrestrained nature was no longer seen. He declined all invitations, ceased his travels, and instead stayed in flaming mountains, helping Rakshasi with household affairs and training the bull soldiers, living a very peaceful life. Several decades later, Red Boy received instructions from the Bodhisattva and returned to flaming mountains to serve his parents. The family of 4 enjoyed a period of peace. However, Rakshasi gradually noticed something unusual about the Bull King. He became increasingly thin, his face showing signs of aging, and he ate less, as if weighed down by heavy worries. More strangely, the Bull King sometimes transformed into his original form, retreating to the mountain peaks, retching. The furry celestial maidens serving Rakshasi said, "The king might be suffering from a rare bovine illness." The fox maidens serving Pingping said, "The king, aware of his past sins, might have learned an ascetic practice in Mount Lingshan and is now undergoing it." The keeper of flaming mountains said, "The king's mind is trapped in the past, intertwines with his old friend, unable to break free. Those past events have become an invisible shackles, and from which he never escape." The mighty inspector, the emperor's guard so grand, rides fiery wheels at the celestial gate to stand, upholding justice, silent and stern. With one steel whip, the souls burn. In the celestial court, it was a well-known fact among gods and Buddhas that Tai Thunderclap Supreme, also known as the Supreme Inspector, was the Jade Emperor's most loyal enforcer. If his gaze was fixed upon someone, it spelled certain doom. Admiral Tenpeng, who was cast down to become a pig, served as a prime example. Once a prominent rising star, he vanished without a trace after the Supreme Inspector reported him. Initially, the Supreme Inspector did not have his current peculiar appearance. Though not as handsome as Tenpeng, he was at least presentable. Later, the Jade Emperor, in appreciation of the Inspector's impartial enforcement of his decrees, transformed the Inspector's head into the shape of his right hand, symbolizing that when the Inspector was present, it is as if the Jade Emperor himself was there. When deities encountered the Inspector, they respectfully greeted him and then quickly distanced themselves. They dared not engage in any high-spirited discussions in his presence, fearing that any mistake might be caught and reported. Although the Inspector had no close companions, he did have some interactions with an old god of very high rank in the Celestial Court, aside from the Jade Emperor. Some immortals said that since the Inspector willingly took on such a significant role, he deserved to endure this solitude. Every advantage came with a disadvantage. Others argued that the Inspector accepted this unappealing position precisely because he preferred not to socialize, finding himself perfectly at ease and content in his role. Opinions were divided, and no consensus was reached. As for what the Inspector truly thought, no one knew. A heart carrying with dreams unclear, she left the mountain, ventured far and near, seeking the 5 skandhas, found naught. True wisdom lies in letting go, she's taught. The Tripitaka scriptures depict the Mandrill as possessing extraordinary abilities, capable of grasping the sun and moon, shrinking mountains, discerning fortunes, and manipulating the universe with its power. In Mount Huagua, a day unlike any other unfolded. The Mandrill Chief was leaping through the mountains when she suddenly saw the celestial stone on the mountaintop explode, producing a stone egg. As the wind blew over it, the stone egg transformed into a stone monkey. The Mandrill Chief approached to observe, and the stone monkey began to mimic, learning to crawl and walk. Subsequently, the stone monkey bowed to the 4 directions, and its eyes emitted 2 beams of golden light that shot up to the celestial palace. Delighted, the Mandrill Chief brought the stone monkey into the forest to meet the other monkeys. This extraordinary stone monkey soon proved its worth and, after a series of contests, became the king of the monkeys, earning the title Handsome Monkey King. For 300 to 500 years, the Monkey King led the monkeys in carefree joy. One day, he began to worry about life and death. The Mandrill Chief advised the Monkey King to go out and seek the Tao. After the Monkey King returned, he rewarded the Mandrill Chief by appointing her as a general. Later, the Monkey King was titled the Great Sage, became a celestial official, caused havoc in the celestial palace, was subdued and imprisoned under a mountain, became a monk, achieved enlightenment, and finally became a Buddha. After several rises and falls, he ultimately returned to the mountain and transformed back into a stone. One day, an immortal appeared in the dream to the Mandrill Chief, telling her that all 5 skandhas are empty and can transcend all suffering. The immortal explained that if she could visit all the sacred places and temples in the world, gather the essence of the 5 skandhas, and make the 5 skandhas pill, she might be able to awaken the stone and restore its divine spirit. Thus, she traveled across the 3 realms and 4 lands, searching for ingredients to make the pill, until she encountered a monkey that looked exactly like the Monkey King. Wind fans the flames, the hammer strikes, swords dance, blades sweep the dust aside. With iron will, one finds their way. Between stillness and motion, greatness will stay. In the hall of Yuan Shoucheng, Yin Tiger stood before the anvil, hammering away. Several young Daoist apprentices surrounded him, fanning the flames and adding wood and charcoal to the fire. Suddenly, the hall doors were kicked open, and the gatekeeper boy chased in with the great sage. Yin Tiger signaled to the apprentices with a glance, and they quickly left. The great sage approached the anvil, threw a set of armor on the ground, and placed 1 foot on the edge of the anvil, laughing. "Brother Tiger, this armor those immortals granted me doesn't suit me at all. Why don't you better it for me? I trust your craftsmanship." Yin Tiger glanced at the great sage's cloud treaters and said, "You come to ask for my help with such disrespect? Your foot." The great sage, with a cheeky smile on his face, lowered his foot and said, "I care nothing about those grand rules above. We've known each other for ages. Why bother with manners?" Yin Tiger didn't respond. The great sage grabbed the large cleaver the tiger had been hammering, tested its weight, and shook his head. "Too light. That is, it doesn't suit you." Only then did Yin Tiger pick up the armor from the ground, examine it, and say, "Your gold armor is excellent. Why bother with this scrap metal?" The great sage leaped onto the tiger's large chair and laughed. "That's why I brought it here. You don't really have to waste your hammerings on it. If anyone asks, just say you're working on it." Yin Tiger refused. "Take it back. I won't play along with your act." The great sage wasn't offended. He untied the precious gourd from his waist and said, "Actually, I came to drink. Go call everyone. Remember to invite my good brother Shen Monkey and bring some of his homemade wine. To drink mine, you guys got to offer something too." Later, the great sage drank and reveled with everyone in the hall of Yuan Shoucheng until he was hammered and had to be escorted back by celestial officials. After he left, Yin Tiger noticed that the armor was still lying beside his anvil. Well then, he would have to return it to him another day. Craving fortune's smile, but met with bitter strife, toiling by dark waters, in a grumpy life. In that realm of paint, the last hopes retreat, The green one brought him sweetness, a long-awaited treat. A scroll lay spread out on the desk, surrounded by 4 figures: a skinny monkey, a mangy dog, an old Loong, and a fierce tiger. The old Loong asked, "The sacred divinity sent us such a treasure. Do you know his intent?" The skinny monkey laughed strangely. "I don't know. Maybe it's meant to be hung up for decoration. If you don't want it, I'll trade it for wine." The mangy dog, holding a palm fan, paced around the desk twice and said, "We were banished to the mortal realm because of the great sage's affair. Undoubtedly, it must be related to this. However, his voice trailed off, unsure how to proceed. The fierce tiger, frustrated by the dog's hesitation, asked, "Do you mean to say, is he here to help or to harm?" The mangy dog fanned himself and retorted, "Such profound matters cannot be spoken of so crudely." The old Loong asked, "What's on your minds?" The skinny monkey lounged in his seat and said, "Not to help, not to help. I'm just a drunkard. What good can I do but earn some wine money? The rest is none of my concern." With that, he closed his eyes and pretended to sleep, saying no more. The fierce tiger chuckled and added, "I only know how to smith. If someone comes seeking my help, I assist them, and that's all." The mangy dog, growing anxious, exclaimed, "Why are you all cowering in fear? We used to act justly. Look at us now, as if things could possibly get any worse. I will lend my aid. I will lend my aid." The old Loong quickly intervened. "Brother, patience. We understand your intentions. We need a plan, so if the sacred divinity reprimand us, we have a response." He paused, and the other 3 nodded in agreement. He continued, "Since we are of the same plan, let's proceed accordingly. Each of us should prepare and set off on an appointed day." Bottom up the jade nectar, a celestial brew. In the jar, the fresh wine sparkles anew. In worldly clamor, he wishes to stay drunk, forgetting homeland, foreign lands amok. In Chang'an City stood the temple of the Wild Goose Pagoda. Not far from its gates lived a diligent temple-goer named Hao Dursa. One day, Dursung dozed off as he sat at ease at home. In his dream, he found himself at the temple gate. For figures approached: a monkey, a dog, a Loong, and a tiger, all deep in talk. He heard the tiger ask, "Where do you plan to take that thing?" The Loong shook his head. "Fret not. I hear they've all returned to their caves. We need but make our way to each place and wait. Our meeting is sure." The dog then inquired, "May I ask, friends, where are you all off to?" The monkey replied, "I'm not fond of the sun, rain, or chill wind. For drinking, I shall seek out a lush and lovely spot." The Loong stretched his neck. "I need to dwell by the water. If your place has a water view, we might dwell near." The monkey waved him off. "I've seen that ugly mug of yours for all my long years. Better we live far and distant from each other." The Loong paid him no heed and asked the dog, "And you, young one, what plans do you have? Perhaps we can." The dog said, No, the time isn't ripe. It's still too early. I'd rather head to the mortal world and have myself some experiences first." "Ha, experiences," scoffed the tiger. "You just yearn the hunt for rare herbs to play with your furnace." The dog flushed, but before he could retort, the monkey turned to the tiger. "And you? What's your plan?" The tiger thumped his chest. "I'll guard the village." Seeing his friends had made their choices, the old Loong said, "Well then, we don't need to travel together. Here's where we part ways, each to seek our path. When I meet that one, I'll gather you all again." With that, the 4 parted. Dursung heard a thunderclap and woke with a start. The dream had already faded from his mind. No divine arts, no meditation's trance. With a palm fan, he nurtures his pill's dance. A sincere heart, the medicine he seeks, bored by human woes and worldly techniques. At the eastern end of Qingshu Alley stood a modest Daoist temple, home to a solitary Daoist. This Daoist professed to have discovered the ancient formula for an immortality pill from the sea, earning him a reputation as a miraculous healer. The Daoist's pills, when taken by the sick, showed no significant improvement, and when taken by the healthy had no noticeable effect. If anyone inquired about their efficacy, he would calmly explain, "There is no such thing as a wondrous cure-all pill that can bring the dead back to life. True health arises from the harmony and smooth flow of one's essence, vigor, and spirit." Consequently, people began to doubt the Taoist's skills, leading to his temple being sparsely visited and few seeking his medical assistance. In the city, there was an old man named Mr. Chen, whose wealth rivaled that of nobility. Now in his 60s, he had fallen gravely ill, showing signs of being near the end of his life. His son sought out the Taoist and invited him to treat his ailing father. The Taoist had a yellow dog that he kept by his side at all times. This time, he brought it along to the Chen residence. The Taoist prepared many special pills for Mr. Chen. Although the household servants thought he was merely going through the motions, they dared not say much and watched from the sidelines. Unexpectedly, after taking the pills, Mr. Chen gradually began to eat and drink a little, and his breathing became smoother, showing signs of recovery. Yet, just when everything was getting better in one of the Taoist's pill-making sessions, his furnace exploded, killing him in the process. The household servants came to clean up the Taoist's temporary quarters, lamenting the whims of fate. To their astonishment, they saw the Taoist's yellow dog, dressed in his clothes, walking out of the room. The dog was fanning itself with a tattered palm leaf fan and said, "I had planned to learn some mortal skills in the human world. Who would have thought that in this world, great talent brings such peril?" With that, the dog snapped the fan and disappeared. Countless souls pursue the immortal quest, seeking the Tao, but truth is not addressed. The fairy itself will never be ashore. Ask not when fruits will ripen. In the void they fade evermore. Some say he is Bodhisattva Guanyin. Some say he is Patriarch Bodhi. Some say he is Wukong himself. Others say he is just an unnamed old monkey in the mountains. With the same posture, he always starts with the same line. Sometimes the mountaintop is empty and silent. Sometimes the summit is bustling with monkey cries. Whenever a destined one sets out on their journey, he gifts them with a handmade willow staff. As he breaks off the willow branch to send them off, he feels a twinge of reluctance in his heart. The immortals of the celestial court say he is gambling. The Buddha on Mount Lingsan says that gambling inevitably leads to loss. He says he neither gambles nor loses. He is just waiting for the stories the destined ones will tell him upon their return. And he has never heard two identical stories. The board is earth, the piece is sky, colors of yin and yang comply. In subtle moves, revolutions blend, laughing, praise the game that will never end. Maitreya had been in the great pagoda for an unknown length of time. When the sacred divinity arrived, the mural was still unfinished. "I knew you would come," Maitreya said with a smile. The sacred divinity cupped his hands in salute. "Your wisdom is unparalleled, venerable one. You must have foreseen this day back on Mount Huagua. Therefore, I beseech you, please, relieve me of my inner turmoil. Since your turmoil stem from Sun Wukong, he should be the one to answer them." "He is dead," the sacred divinity said, his voice faltering as if unwilling to utter the word. "I have already opened the path for you. No one will disturb you there. Take your time to ponder," Maitreya said, stepping aside. Instantly, wind and snow swirled in from the opposite wall, casting a chill throughout the pagoda. The sacred divinity stepped forward as instructed, stopping at the edge of the void. He turned back and said, "By stepping into this painted Mount May today, the celestial court will not be able to find me. Venerable one, would Mount Lingsan know of your deeds?" Maitreya laughed. "Have we met before? The Erlang Shen I know is much uglier than you." Hearing this, the sacred divinity said no more and strode into the wind and snow. In skies high, his talents shine, like plum blooms pure and bright. His form defies the winter's snow, a sacred being of light. With lofty heart, he claims no kin to the emperor above. His noble spirit dims the stars, unlocking the great pagoda. These are just monkeys. None of them has anything worthwhile. A celestial soldier used his spear to flip over a corpse, complaining to his fellow. Before them lay the aftermath of the battle at Mount Huagua. Jagged rocks, ancient trees charred by lightning, and bodies strewn across the landscape. The good stuff is all in the water curtain cave. We only get to clean up the battlefield, replied the fellow. True, we just do the dirty work, finishing off those who aren't quite dead yet. With that, the celestial soldier thrust his spear into a corpse and pulled it out again. They methodically checked each body until they reached a large boulder. The celestial soldier knocked on the stone. Watching this, his fellow said, "It's just a rock. What do you expect to find out of it?" The celestial soldier replied, "Don't you know? This is Sun Wukong." The fellow looked puzzled. "Nonsense. How could this be Sun Wukong? He died earlier with his 6 roots severed and given to the Yaoguai kings. Born from a stone, and now with his senses gone, he naturally turned back into stone after death." "Bollocks," said his fellow. "You don't believe it?" The celestial soldier boasted. "I was at the front of the formation and saw it clearly. When they dismembered his body, even the sacred divinity took a piece." The fellow, curious, asked, "I don't remember you being at the front. Is that true? Even the sacred divinity took a piece? I saw all those Yaoguai kings from the lower realms today. I thought only Yaoguais would take things from other Yaoguais." "He's not just any Yaoguai, he was once granted Buddhahood," corrected the celestial soldier. "Why would the sacred divinity take that? Isn't it considered bad luck? Who knows? Sun Wukong was powerful. Maybe consuming it would be highly beneficial." They both laughed heartily. "Hey, look at this," said the fellow, noticing something white beside the stone. They picked it up and found it was a branch of plum blossoms, as white as jade, as pure as snow, blooming fragrantly. The celestial soldier wondered, how could there be plum blossoms on Mount Huagua? The fellow said, "This looks somewhat like..." Before he could finish, a spearhead pierced through his chest, emitting a golden light that even dispersed the soul within his armor. The celestial soldier looked over his fallen fellow's shoulder, shocked. Before he could react, the golden light flashed again. White clouds drifted past, leaving the mountain peak in tranquility once more. Three yangs converge. Life springs forth anew. The celestial stone holds sun and moon's hue. From an egg, a monkey's path is laid. A future arises with his form made. Within, no form to recognize, without, a shape before everyone's eyes. Talented ones emerged through ages. How few achieved the Tao among kings and sages. The table was a mess, and after 3 rounds of drinks, the two sitting across from each other were completely hammered. "Bajie, my brother, I'm done being the victorious fighting Buddha. Whoever wants the darn title can have it," Wukong said, his face red and blood boiling. It was unclear whether he was truly drunk or just pretending. Bajie, straightforward as always, replied, "Brother, enlightenment we've attained. Being free, we can drink to our heart's content. Shouldn't we be happy?" Wukong sneered. "Yes, attaining Buddhahood for the removal of my headband was indeed a good deal." "Exactly. With the headband gone, you don't have to fear master chanting anymore. Doesn't call for 2 more toast," Bajie said, still trying to persuade Wukong to drink more, despite his own muddled state. "Bajie, you enjoy drinking, but if someone wanted to have you served as their side dish for drinking, would you still be this happy? Who wants to eat me? My 9-toothed rake won't allow it," Bajie said, slamming the table. "Well, that would be much more difficult than you think." Wukong waved his hand dismissively, his face disdainful. "If they wanted to eat you, there wouldn't even be bones left." "They? Who are you talking about? Let me ask you, on our journey, how many Yaoguais did we encounter? And how many did we kill?" "Too many. Lost count. Remember? Whenever you get bored or lazy, you'd send me to clear out those caves and lairs. Not counting the lesser ones, how many of the powerful ones did we kill?" "I don't remember. Probably killed them all. Setting aside the tree guais from the wood Immortal hut and those 7 spiders, we killed less than half of the ones we fought." Seven spiders? Oh, I remember now. The other half we didn't kill. Do you know why? Why? Because we mustn't kill them. That was before. Now we're celestial beings ourselves. If it pleases us, We can go kill them now. Wukong sighed. Bajie, why don't we resign from our positions and retire? I'll go back to my mountain, and you can return to your village. Bajie was stunned, not understanding why Wukong suddenly changed the topic. I'm not going back. If you want to leave, go ahead. Now, I don't have to lift a finger, and there's an endless supply of tributes and all kinds of delicacies. If I go back, I'll have to work the fields. I can't bear the toil. These tributes should go to those who need them more. If we eat them, those people will have less to eat. What happened to you? Weren't all our struggle just for this? Don't tell me you wish to go begging for alms with our master like before. Forget it. Forget it. Let's drink. Bajie couldn't remember when Wukong left the table. Before he blacked out from drinking, the last thing he remembered his brother said was, "Immortality? It's not for me." Half a life in vain, half a life in haste, one dawn of clarity, one dawn erased. Prophecies lag behind the schemes of man. No augury can stay an obsessed hand. Waves upon waves, the world's perils lie, dust upon dust, uncountable debts beneath the sky. Gatherings and partings like morning dew, grudges and loves like lightning, passing through. 1,000 years of rise and fall, nothing new. A century's success and failure, something true. Harvesting deeds, by the destiny's decree. Fates rise and fall, as sunsets flee. Harsh words spoken, ears they defy, careless talk, hearts they pry. Crude strokes mar the eye's delight, intent to sketch, wounds for sight. Yaoguais and Buddhas all in me, fiends and gods alike we see. My tears flow like springs, don't ask why, laughing to the sky, its follies cry.